So here we go, guys. This is note 7-2, volume of rectangular prisms. You can just watch, you can copy, you can stop and start. Do whatever makes you comfortable as we do this. Volume is the amount of space that something occupies. It's not the capacity, it's not what it holds, it's not the mass, it's not what it weighs. It is the space that an object occupies, takes up, fills. It's always done in cubic units. When you do cubic units, it's a little 3, and that's why we did cubes for our first lesson. And it could be centimeters cubed, it could be inches cubed, it could be feet cubed, it could be yards cubed, it could be meters cubed. All the units are cubed because it's space that is occupied. Every single time you go to calculate volume, every time it's the area of the base of whatever shape you're doing times the height. So you might want on your note just underline area of the base. So each note we'll look at a new base. For a rectangular prism, the base is a rectangle. So the area of the base matters. You have a length, which we will call L, and you have a width, which we will call W. Hopefully that makes sense. And the area, capital A, equals small l times small w. Now, in this case, you don't have to do a written L. You can do an L that's printed. I just did a written one so that you don't think it's a 1. And that means length times width. Don't put the time sign in your formula because then it looks like a letter X and it is confusing. Once you know that, you can find the volume. Volume equals the area of the base, there's your 1 or your written L, times the height. This is what you have to remember today for everything, just about everything we're doing. So that's super important. So you probably want to mark it. And there are no multiplication signs because they look like a variable. And you use lowercase small letters. That's what you have to do. Now I'm going to move this sheet of paper up and I'm going to do an example. My expectations are that you will tell me how you're communicating. Not tell me, you will communicate with me clearly what you are doing. Now, if you're doing a worksheet, you can easily write on the worksheet your letters. It helps you sort it out. I will never see this part. You won't show me this part. And if you're working in a textbook, you sure wouldn't write on it. So what you need to do is when you show your work, you need to set up a key so that you can tell me what the measurements are. The length is 4 centimeters. The width is 3 centimeters. And the height is 5 centimeters. That's step number 1. Everybody does that. You communicate to me the measurements that you are going to use. Then I want you to tell me what formula you are using. And in this case, it's length times width times height. You have to tell me this so that I know what you're doing. Then it's 4 for length times 3 for width times 5. You don't have to use multiplication signs. You could use brackets if you choose, or you can do it with multiplication signs. You can get out your calculator, you can do it in your head, but you need to evaluate this and you get 60 centimeters cubed, and that's important. So step 3 was to fill it in. Step 4 was to do your calculation. And step 5 is to remember to tell me what the units are. Without units, the information is slightly meaningless. Now what I want you to do now is turn your note over if you're using a note that you're writing on, or just keep watching or pause this to think about it, whatever works for you. Here is another example, and one thing you could do while I'm doing this is you could stop and try it, and then I'll do it and you can see if you get it, or you can just watch. Again, whatever works for you. So because I'm not going to see the shape, You're going to communicate to me which measurements you're using. 12 is the length. 8 is the width. And your height is 20 centimeters. And it matters which is which, because if you were solving a problem with something missing, then you would need to know which number is which. You write the formula. You fill in the formula. You get out your calculator and you do your calculation and your units. So if I was looking at this, I would say they told me what they were going to use. They told me what formula they were using. They showed the numbers they were substituting. They did their calculation and they did their units. Okay, let's do one more rectangular prism. And again, if you want to stop this, you can. That way you could try it and then you could compare it to my answer, just like we would do if we were in the classroom. In this case, the length is 24, the width is 6, and the height is 10. Length, width, height. You write down the formula. And I keep switching between a written L and a printed L so that you can see it doesn't matter. That's not an accident. I'm doing that on purpose. And you get your answer, 1,440, and you write your centimeters cubed. Key, formula, substitution, answer, units. And you can look over your work very carefully and always be able to get this correct. And make sure that you have everything there. I want to change it a bit now, and although a cube is a rectangular prism, it has a special formula because a cube has all the sides the same. S stands for side. And the formula for a cube, the volume equals S cubed, and we talked about that in the first note. Knowing that, how on earth would you calculate the volume of a cube? Well, you would write the key, and the key isn't complicated this time. It's S equals 6 meters. Your formula now would be S cubed. You would have 6 cubed, and on your calculator you know that you use the power button. So you go 6 power button 3 equals 6 power button 3 equals, and you get 216 meters cubed. And it's exactly the same thing. You told me the number you're going to use, the formula, you did your substitution, you did your calculation, and you wrote your units. Now you're going to do a worksheet for this that is 9 questions. Those 9 questions need to be done on separate paper with all 5 steps for each question. Now that sounds like a lot to do 45 things, but I actually did it on one piece of paper on one side. So I think you're going to be able to do it fairly quickly. You might want to watch this video twice. You might want to copy it out. Do what works for you. Thank you.